Hello, this James Mahan here again. I want to tell you about this book. It's called Love and Jello. I'll probably have to have another part because it has 140 pages and I'm on 80. So if I do 30 pages past 80, 90, 100, 110, I'd have at least two more videos to do, including this one. It's called Love and Jello by Kat Rovin Gogan and Matt Rotberg. And Kat's Kat's been one of my friends since the early 1980s, and she's a world-renowned playwright in her own realm. She's created several plays, including the most famous "May I Have Your Attention," and she is very accomplished. And her and Matt have been working on this book for quite a time now. And opened my post office box, and boom, this was her book. And I'm very appreciative of her work, and I think you will be too. Now, before I get started, I would like to dedicate this book to Kathy's late mother and daddy, and uh, and also to everyone that has helped her along the way in writing this book. Um, all her friends and colleagues that have helped Kathy and Matt Reffenberg through this process. I'm going to read as much as I can without getting tired, and then hopefully I may read 10 pages, I may read 20, I don't know, but probably not more than 20. I'll probably stop at page 100. So that means that I'll have this video, which I was going to have like 3 parts, but I'll have at least 4 or 5 parts. Okay, as we left off on page 80, I'll read that last uh, is to that point, and that was where I left off. Page 81, Love and Jello. Dawn was floored, and throughout the evening had begun to see glimmer of hope. She was now the person he remembered when she was normal. He couldn't have been more wrong. The bartender asked him again if he wanted a refill, to which Don replied, "Make it a double." He again drifted back to the last time he saw his mother. The evening had been interesting to Don. She seemed normal enough that they had been sharing dinner and more stories the time apart. When they finally went to bed, it was well after midnight. She hugged him and kissed his cheek, and she said goodnight and went slowly up the stairs to her room. Don sat on the couch, reliving the evening, astonished at the change in his mother. It was night and day. He was still not going to trust her fully. He doubted he would ever trust any woman fully. There were too many instances of craziness he had experienced for that. His mistrust must explain why he had never married. He had kids from a relationship he had with a woman in Ohio, but he had never saw them. Best able to travel a lot and get away if need be. Don awoke later to the TV showing an infomercial selling the Total Gym with Chuck Norris. He was shaking the fog from his brain, and it took a few moments to realize he was freezing. In fact, he could see his breath. It was February in Michigan, and he realized after a minute the front door was wide open. He looked at his watch, and it said 3:30 a.m. Looking around quietly to make sure he was alone in the room, he got up close to the door. With the house not being in the best of areas, someone might have broken in. He didn't see any signs of forced entry. Perhaps the wind had blown the door open. He checked the rest of the rooms downstairs, and he passed the bottom of the stairs. He noticed a light from under the door to his mother's bedroom. He climbed the stairs and called to her, but there was no answer. He knocked and opened the door. His only thought as he surveyed the room before him, such a disarray, was, "Oh shit." The last thing Don remembered from that afternoon at the bar was ordering another drink. He woke up the next morning on the floor of his apartment without a clue how he had gotten there. As Don laid on the floor in his apartment, Wayne was busy enacting the part of his plan. He was wandering around a large store picking out various items as an eager saleswoman followed, writing down his purchases. He wasn't sure about color, style, and had to ask Matt about a few of them. "That'd be a good one, Wayne," Matt would say, or nah, that's no good, would be his responses. After an hour or so, the two left the store after paying and arranging the delivery since the order was large and he wouldn't fit into Matt's car. It was one of the drawbacks of owning a two-seater. Love and Jello, page 83. As they pulled away out into the road, Matt saw Wayne smiling out of the corner of his eye. This is a nice thing you're doing, Wayne, he said. Yep, it's God's way. I hope all goes according to the plan. Say, I'm a little hungry. Can we stop for ice cream? Wayne asked. Sure, stopping takes a lot out of you. Matt laughed as he drove toward the ice cream stand. Don finally made it out of his apartment and was sitting at the commons area trying to piece together the events the night before. His head hurt, and then more importantly, his beat up car wasn't in the parking lot. He tried to remember where it could be, and the truth to be told, he had no clue. He had found his keys, so that was good. He started to formulate a plan. He would start at the bar and try to retrace his steps. First, he needed to go get into town and the bar and began to search. He looked around to see who might be able to give him a ride, but saw no one. His only choices were to walk or take a Manor shuttle bus. Walking might not have been a bad idea since as it was a nice day, but his head, page 84, Love and Jello, hurt a lot, and the thought was make walking a mile or so with whimsy past an appeal to him. The escape shuttle, as the residents called it, would be leaving soon anyway. Don didn't particularly relish the idea of having to catch a ride into town on it. The escape shuttle, as Wayne referred to it, was always full of the craziest of the Manor Branch on their way to the doctor appointments or shopping at the mall, or God knew where else. Don went outside into the mist of the day and immediately regretted not having his sunglasses. The bright sun was like driving large nails into his eyes. He stood for a minute trying to adjust the sun and could barely make out the form of a car approaching. Don walked to where the other residents were boarding the shuttle and tried to be inconspicuous. As he was about to step on, he heard Wayne's voice saying, Hey Don, where's your car? Why are you getting on the escape shuttle? Everything okay? You need a ride somewhere? Don was in no mood and had no intention of playing 20 questions with that idiot Wayne today. He turned to look at him and saw Wayne was holding an ice cream cone that was melting in the sun and dripping down his hand into his shoe. Don rolled his eyes and said, Shut up, Wayne, and boarded the shuttle. Page 85, Love and Jello. He took a seat as far away from everyone as he could get and saw Wayne watching him through the window as the younger man with him handed Wayne some napkins. Dumbass, Don muttered to himself as the shuttle pulled away. Thankful he was away from Wayne's questions and the ride into the would be mercifully short. Don stared out of the window, watching the scenery out of a nice Kentucky afternoon roll by, keeping one eye for the battered Chevy in case it was somewhere along the way. He overheard the two women in front of him talking as one of them looked into the window up at the sky, and the other sat with her purse clutched to her chest listening. I know it to be up there, one woman said. What was his response? They've got a helicopter that follows me all over where I go. It's from the local news station. And every night when they do the news, when they'd be signing off, the news guy, he makes a sign to say good night to me. Of course, ain't nobody can see it but me, but every night I sees it, said the woman by the window. Said the other one. What you gonna do for? What you gonna do? What you gonna do, Dama for? I gotta get some more clothes for Travis, says the woman, looking out the window for presumably the news helicopter. Don snorted, and the two women lured at him, and they turned back. He recognized the woman by the window as one of the craziest of the group at the manor. Don laughed at him, and he recalled the story of the woman's belief. Her clothes she picked up out of the store were later picked up by the country singer Travis Tritt, and he would wear them on the stage at his concerts. In actuality, she would go to the store, pick out some clothes, and bring them to the register and leave them there. insisting they were for Travis Tritt and the salespeople would have to spend their time restocking them. She didn't pay for the clothes because presumably Mr. Tritt would be taking care of that when he arrived. You knows I ain't been doing good since I had to leave school that day for Mr. Conway Twitty passed away. God rest his soul, said clearly crazed one of the pair. Said crazy woman, praise Jesus. The scape shuttle pulled up to the curb not from the bar where Don had been the afternoon before, and Don got off feeling a bit better and happy to be away from those idiots on the bus. He walked away from the sidewalk. This is page 87, loving Jello. And happy to be away from those idiots on the bus, he walked down the sidewalk whistling softly. Here's a quarter. Call someone who cares by another one than other Mr. Travis Tritt. Don made his way to the bar looking around for his car as he walked it. It was most amusing and bothersome that it was missing and he had no idea where it could be. He had not misplaced his car since he was many years younger after a long night of drinking. That time he had found it the next day in the parking lot to a Dunkin' Donuts. He had stopped on the way home. He had no idea what he had left the car there and walked home. He entered to the bar as if anyone would trigger a memory of the previous evening. The bartender saw him come in and looked at a little apprehensive. Don took a seat at the end of the bar and ordered a coffee, opting not to begin drinking again, although some hair of the dog would probably help his hangover at this point. Had an interesting night, the bartender asked, setting his coffee down. Indeed, I'm having trouble remembering the end of it, Don replied. Page 88, Love and Jello. You caused quite a stir last night, ran out of here yelling something about your mother being missing. Was really sounding concerned. I apologize for that. Did at least pay for my tab, Don asked. Yep. We're all square. Coffee's on me, smiled the bartender. Don said, thinking about the night before. Bits and pieces of the night before floated in and out of focus. He knew they had been thinking about his mother, and he shuddered as he recalled the night was at her house and found the door wide open. Don turned and ran down the stairs after finding his mother's room empty, flinging the front door open. The cold hit him and momentarily took his breath away. He had been away from Michigan for a lot of years and wasn't ready for the cold of winter there. He reached for his jacket and pulled it on as he walked down the porch and down the steps to the sidewalk. It had snowed a little, but there was no tracks on it, so she might have been outside for a while. He turned left and walked down the street in that direction, looking for any signs of her. His path took him to the end of the block, and he continued further down the street, not knowing where he would find her. He had experienced her disappearances before, once finding her in the driveway in a nightgown. Staring at the moon, another one in the park a few blocks away on the swings. He searched for a good while before deciding to go back in the house in case he had returned and warm up a little bit before heading in the other direction to continue his search. Page 89, Love and Jello. As he approached the house and went up to the steps, he saw footprints in the snow. He was happy to know that she had made her way back to the house. When he opened the door, he was momentarily shocked to see his mother scream and lounge at him, a steak knife raised in her fist. The world seemed too slow to crawl as she came forward. Don stood still, reacting and didn't recognize the woman before him. Her eyes had no comprehension that the man before her was her only son and that they had spent the evening talking and laughing to Don. It seemed as if the woman knew as his mother was gone, replaced by a stranger before him, coming at him with a knife raised. Don moved slightly as the knife slashed downward and caught his jacket, creating a tear where just an inch away from Don's heart beat wildly. Don instinctively tried to push her away, and in doing so, he fell backward, the knife skimming across the floor. She tripped over the edge of the carpet and continued to stumble and fall. Her momentum took her to the coffee table, which was a metal frame with a glass top. She crashed through the top and came to rest on the shelf below. Don ran to her, and he could see the familiar person he knew had returned to her eyes as he, page 90, Levin Jello, looked down and saw the jagged piece of glass protruding from her stomach. Don grabbed her hand and tears welled up in his eyes as he realized what was happening. He could see the blood pooling from under his mother, and when he looked at her face, she smiled weakly. She laid a hand on her son's face and said, "Thank you, Donnie. I'm free now." Don watched in horror as the light in her eyes faded and she drew what would be her last breath. The smile on her lips as hand fell to her side. Don again shuddered as the bartender poured more coffee in his cup, and he asked if he was okay. Yes, thank you, Don said absent-mindedly. He looked up after her concerned face and smiled to let her know he was fine. He finished his coffee, left a tip for the bartender, and went in search for his car. It was a half an hour that he found it parked in front of the Mexican restaurant where he went to a lot. None was worse for wear. He didn't know why he stopped driving there, but was glad to have his car back. He started and headed back to the manor, though that night his mother's house left behind him, thankfully. Page 91, Love and Jello. Alice knocked on Don's door a while later and waited nervously for him to open it. Who is it? Don yelled, sounding annoyed. Don, it's Alice. Can we talk for a minute? Alice heard the locks open the door and opened to reveal Don smiling at her. Hi, Alice. What's up? Don asked. I hate to bother you, but I was wondering if you were free one day this week to go see Bud in the hospital, Alice said hopefully. Don thought for a minute before agreeing that he would be able to take her 2 days then. He had been meaning to go see Bud anyway. Even though he was still in the coma, he could figure out since Alice wanted to go, it would be as good a time as any. Perfect. Thank you so much, Don, Alice said happily. I appreciate it. Page 92, Love and Jello. Don closed the door happily to have something to do and someone to talk to for what would probably be an all-day trip to go see Bud. The agreed upon time 2 days later, Don walked out of his apartment and met Alice in the commons area. They greeted each other and walked to see Don's beat up car. As they were walking outside, they could hear Eddie yelling, The cable's out again. Wayne smiled to himself as he watched him leave the parking lot. He made a quick phone call and went to find something to eat while he waited the other gather in the common area. Chapter 10, God's Way, and I will be right back. Don't move. Okay, I think this is a good place for me to stop right now. I've got to page 93, and I'm a little bit tired. And so, what I'm going to do is go ahead and start with chapter 10. And we have chapter 11, chapter 11, chapter 12, there's an epilogue. So there's just like 3 chapters left. I think I'll just go ahead and finish that out. Um, I'll finish it out a little bit later. I've read for 20 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and share this with Kathy and see what she thinks. And if you can get a copy of this, try to go ahead and order a copy. The title is Love and Jello. The ISBN is number 978 1 71677 925 1, the paperback version. The Library of Congress control number is 202-09-12349. And this is copyright 2020 by Riffenberg and Golden and Roden Golden. Gauguin. This is called Love. Again, this is called Love and Jello, and it's written by Kath Roden Gauguin and Matt Riffenberg. I sure appreciate y'all's time and taking the time to read this book with me, and I'm glad we was able to share this time for you that don't have this book yet. And once I read it, I'm hoping that you'll be able to purchase it on your own. Look over my mistakes, because they are some mistakes that I went through in doing this book. So I'm a little tired, so I'm in there, and we'll start on chapter 10 when I come back. Okay? Thank you. And remember, you're important. Take care of yourself and stay safe.